There's no jumping the gun. This is the topic. I think this is the most exciting news Stardom could have possibly brought to the table after a 2021 where, for the majority, they owned 2021 with one of the best years we've got to see. So I don't know how you can top that year, and then you bring back Kairi, and if you watch the press conference today, it wasn't very long. It was a 16-minute video where they got a lot done. But of course, the reveal was the former Kairi Sane of WWE, Kairi Hojo in Stardom. She will now be going by Kairi. Did you get to see any of the clips?
No, I didn't. Well, I did watch the clip on the ostensible second mystery woman, but
Yes.
that was all I was able to. I just mostly saw screens from Oedo Tai attacking and all that type of stuff.
Yes. Okay. So, yep, Rossi pretty much introduces Kairi. Well, she, does the whole reveal with the hat that she had. And, there was no one there. Like, there was no audience or anything for this press conference. So it's kind of like they're, going to wait for that moment at Ryogoku, which is pretty cool. But that's how we began. She looks to be in the best shape of her life. And, she's I don't know how long she's going to wrestle, but it does sound like she's going to be around for a while based off the Tokyo Sport report I just saw. She's got her eyes on the Wonder of Stardom Championship. So just a little toss in there. Her versus Saya Kamatani feels like a match they could do down the line. And then we get to the point of Unagi Sayaka, of course, making her way out, the one who assesses everyone, all the newcomers, I should say. And a lot of people just, instantly laugh because they're like, oh, they actually did it. Like they did it with, Kairi of all people. It was pretty funny. And then, Tam walks out and, kind of saves the day because I don't know if anyone wanted the first match of Kairi back in Stardom against Unagi Sayaka, though. It wouldn't have been probably that bad. It would have been pretty funny. And in result, what we get is a challenge. Kairi and Mayu Iwatani versus Unagi Sayaka and Tam Nakano at night one of Stardom World Climax, which will be going by The Best. That is the name of night one. Parker, we all love singles matches. We all love, especially for someone like Kairi, that's what we're going to all really want. But when it comes to a return match, does this fit? Does this fit what, if it has to be a tag team match, I think this is pretty fitting.
Yeah, this fits me for sure. I actually kind of love the use of Unagi in this situation. I think just her sort of gimmick of being like the gatekeeper essentially has actually worked out pretty well. To essentially, you can just set up a match right away with whoever it is, and instead of just making it a straight up singles between her and Kairi, adding two of the best wrestlers on the roster to the match, I think makes it all the more exciting. I lean towards Kairi either joining Stars or potentially one of the factions that splits between DDM and whatever happens in that. So I think Mayu is an appropriate partner for her, and of course Mayu is by far the member of the roster that Kairi has the most history with, so it makes perfect sense to me.
I think it's definitely interesting to think, where does she go, assuming she goes to a faction. Stars definitely feels obvious due to the connection with Mayu, but I think it's definitely an interesting look if you think about DDM and the potential split. I think we don't know exactly for sure what the sides will be, but the whatever side has Natsupoi, due to they have a little past, that would make some sense. But it's just all exciting. She doesn't need to be in a faction at all, truthfully. She can be the one lone warrior out there. Like there's no reason Kairi needs to be in one, but they often put them in factions. So depending how long she's around, it's always possible. But yeah, when it comes to putting her and Mayu Iwatani back together first night, it's pretty awesome. For those who may not know, the Redom is that's like the trio of Stardom. If you look into the history of Stardom, it pretty much is Mayu Iwatani, Kairi, and Io Shirai. And of course, Io Shirai is not here, but I feel like the return of Kairi definitely gives people hope that someday Io Shirai will, hopefully make her way home to have one last run in Stardom as well. But it's just really cool. If anyone goes back and watch old Stardom matches or old Stardom shows, Kairi's all over them. And the Kairi that a lot of people saw in WWE doesn't come close to Kairi Hojo, the wrestler. Last week on the episode, I looked at the Kairi Hojo versus Meiko Satomura. I believe it was a 30-minute draw. It was for the World of Stardom title match. And you just watch that and you're like, oh, this is, not the same person. I've seen a lot of Kairi's top matches from her time in Stardom, and she's just a completely different wrestler. And I think that's why there's so much excitement. This excitement for fans, right? It's not coming from Kairi Sane fans. It's coming from Stardom fans. It's coming from those who, watched her or have went back and watched clips. And that's the exciting part. I will add before I ask you a question is after Kairi was like, yeah, why not? She faked a back fist to Nagi's head, which was pretty entertaining. I was like, man, she's going to absolutely wreck her with that at Ryogoku. And I think everyone's going to jump in glee because it's going to be pretty funny. So my question for you is, before we get to the, rest with the Oedo Tai and whatnot, what do you think is the perfect, well, I actually start with this. So Jonathan, shouts out to him. He asked me like top 5 opponents you want to see for Kairi. Instead of giving you top 5, what's the one match that you want to see the most? One singles match.
Oh man, that's like so tough. I was actually I was looking at it. You look at the the roster from when she left 3.5 years ago to now, and aside from like dojo members, trainees, like essentially children wrestlers, the only regular roster members that are still on the roster are Mayu and Natsuko Tora, and that's like it. That's yeah, there's been so much roster turnover. So I mean, literally everybody on the roster is like a fresh match and a really exciting match to have. I think I don't know if it would be my dream match, so to speak, but I do think that match with Saya Kamitani is like kind of the one. In terms of just the match of styles. If there's one thing Stardom really doesn't have that many of anymore, it's high flyer style wrestlers, and so to get a big time matchup between two high flyers is really something we haven't gotten in like forever. Mayu and Mayu and Saya Kamitani have never had a high profile singles match, and so I think that's a huge one. That's kind of what I would lean to first, but the roster's so stacked. I mean, I just can't wait. I want to fast forward 8 months for the 5-star and and get to that. But Tam's a great one as well. Probably, to be honest, a World of Stardom Championship match against Utami Hayashishida, even though she's not the champion right now, I think is like maybe the best match that we could have, or at least one of them. So there's so many. Literally anybody on the roster is like an exciting fresh matchup. So yeah, that match with Utami might be the biggest if based off what Utami has become over the past year. I mean, rematch or match with Mayu for the first time and who knows how long is of course big, but I like the Saya Kamitani thought. Either that or a match against Tam kind of feels like
the first major singles match of Kairi, just based off what we've been seeing the past couple, over the past couple months alone, and of course today. But yeah, there's not really a bad choice. Like, I was also thinking about this today, like Kairi versus Julia, where they just kind of, hit each other as hard as they possibly can. Couldn't be bad. Or, her versus Shuri, if she was to challenge for the title. There's really no bad choices.
Well, yeah, and she had great chemistry with Shayna Baszler in WWE, and so I think if you take someone like Shuri, and obviously wrestles very similarly to Baszler, but I would argue on a much elevated level. I mean, that could be something great too. There's just, like I said, there's so many possibilities, and especially if Stardom continues to like expand and continues to bring people in. I mean, there's people that a year ago we wouldn't have even thought possible that it could be. Like, there's people like Yoshiko or Maya Yukihi or Suzu Suzuki, people like that, right? That's now like within the realm of possibility. So it's so exciting.
Suzu Suzuki is a very interesting one, because I think a lot of people think the whole reason Prominence is in Stardom to begin with is because Rossi wants to eventually sign her, which it's not a crazy idea knowing him. But yeah, those are all so exciting, and I think that's the part about Kairi being here back. We get to, we're just gonna get to watch her wrestle. Maybe one of the best women's rosters that's ever been assembled, and they're only adding. That's the crazy part. You just noted that right there. And then after, she was ready to leave, she was, doing her poses, and out of nowhere, Oedo Tai, Natsuko Tora, Momo Watanabe, and Starlight Kid attacked. And I just laughed, because I was like, wow, I forgot that Tora was there. Like, truthfully, I forget that she's there. And I was like, if Oedo Tai was just this trio, I think they'd be seen a lot differently than they are still overall. Because these three are like, they're more prominent. They are actual like people that the company will probably build behind. At least Kid and Momo, and Tora is just she has that long-term effect since she's been there. As you just noted, she was there when Kairi left. So they attacked, they left her laying, and and then they walked away, and Kairi was like, I'll deal with them later, it's fine. So instantly when that happened, I was like, okay, a singles match with Starlight Kid, if they want to get a major match at Ryogoku for Kid more than Kairi, because I don't know if anyone's figured it out by now, Starlight Kid's getting, she's getting the big push. She is, one of the future stars for a reason. But I'm sure she'll probably team up with someone to face Oedo Tai. Maybe that's when she teams up with Queen's Quest. She'll be the name to help them, because of course they're still feuding. There's a number of ways to go here. But Parker, we got to see this again. It was only like 16 minutes. And we'll get to the second mystery person, which just adds another layer to this. But we're only a few hours removed. How are you feeling about, Kairi being a full-time member of this roster? Because, we've talked about opponents, we've talked what could happen, but I don't know if she's going to be doing house shows, and if she, because we don't know how full-time she is yet. And, we'll get those answers. But just the idea that Kairi is going to be around these shows, does it make Stardom more interesting to you? And then do you think the return of Kairi in any form brings in new fans because of the fans she's created outside of Stardom?
Yes and yes. She's one of the defining members of Stardom historically. She's kind of that, looking at the starting era, that was like a lot of Nanai Takahashi and sort of wrestlers along that ilk, and then we get to sort of the middle era where Stardom starts to gain popularity, and we get the big three of Shirai and Kairi and Mayu. She's one of the defining members of that era, and she was the first to jump ship, which I think means something in terms of international appeal as well. I think there's still a lot of people who just kind of assume that Asuka/Kana was a former Stardom member without knowing that. But still, I think even if Kairi wasn't portrayed super well in WWE, I thought she was portrayed very well in NXT by itself, and just her overall talent and like charisma level, I think should be an indicator that like, okay, like this is a big deal that she's going back to an indie. Like I don't know. It's difficult to put into words. Like WWE wrestlers don't voluntarily leave and then go back to the essentially indie they came from.
Right.
That just like doesn't happen. Yeah. So for Kairi to do that is like a massive deal to me. It just in personal interest level. I mean, I think she's fantastic, and she's super charismatic. She's actually. It's hard. I was about to say that she was my favorite of the big three, but I do adore Mayu as well. But I mean, when she came into WWE, I was like, all right, this is a big deal. They need to make her a big star, and they did not. But I mean, this has to have more eyes on the company for her to go back and do that, comparable to essentially like Shinsuke Nakamura going back to New Japan, something like that. So yeah, I desperately hope she's a full-time member. I don't know if that's selfish of me, but Stardom doesn't do part-timers. Like there's nobody on the roster who's like a straight up part-timer except for Yoneyama, who does all the indies anyway. So I really hope that's not the case, that she would just be a part-timer. Stardom is built on having a clear established roster and not really much of anybody who's wishy-washy in and out part of the time. So I really hope that's the case. That would help alleviate fears that like, okay, if we're going to get Kairi, she's great. I don't particularly care to see her in 4 to 6 dream matches a year, as great as that would be, as much as I do to see her in the 5 star and in the Cinderella and in a faction and challenging for not just the Wonder and World titles, but also tag titles and trios titles and stuff like that, because she's so valuable in that sense too. So with all that being said, everybody should really be excited about this. And this is the biggest sort of free agent signing in Stardom history. And that I think should indicate just how far they've come.
I think that's perfectly said. This is the biggest sign. It'll be one of those moments you look down at 5 years from now, and you're like, okay, so this was the next step in them continuing to elevate, because they did everything they could have possibly done in 2021. I don't think they left any doors unopened. They hit and hit and hit and hit. But coming into 2022, I think a lot of people asked, besides running bigger buildings and they're doing Ryogoku double, so that's a good start. How does Stardom keep growing? You bring in a wrestler like Kairi, and instantly the game changes. I think the excitement is that she's probably going to be full-time. That would be my guess. And that instantly makes people, want to get Stardom World subscriptions, check out house shows that,
if she's not full-time, I mean, that's not a draw for Stardom World at all, because she would only be on pay-per-views, which I mean, I guess 3 days after the fact they show up, but still, I think pretty much everybody finds, whether they're Stardom World subscribers or not, I think everybody finds a way to watch those pay-per-views within those 3 days. You know what I mean? I don't see many people waiting for that.
And I think the beauty of Kairi coming back is those Stardom World subscriptions are already probably adding up because people are like, okay, now I need to go back and see her old work. I need to see what I'm about to get here, because you don't want to go, watch her WWE work. That's not going to give you any message. But I think you did make a good point of, her time in NXT, especially, did help make her popular. She was very popular once she started teaming with Asuka and whatnot on the main roster. Like, that was if you followed along on Twitter or social media, you could get the grasp that people enjoyed her. But in NXT, she was the first ever Mae Young Classic winner. That tournament was essentially built around her. So that, right off the bat, you just kind of get that idea. NXT Women's Champion, while not that long, it still happened. She still had that moment where she opens the treasure chest that I think is one that a lot of her fans will remember, revealing the title. And the excitement goes, all around. It's just so cool to see her back. Every moment that she has with this new roster is going to be must see, like the first time her and Utami go face to face, that's going to be cool. The first time, which we already have, is her and Mayu seeing each other for the first time. That's going to be awesome. And I definitely am in agreement with you, by the way, on the whole Freedom thing. Like, yeah, you can't Mayu is the one, but Kairi is great, and Io was the one in Stardom. But selfish reasons aside, we have a lot of Stardom to get into here, but there is more Kairi talk. So they did release a video a few hours ago of Saya Kamatani walking up to the mystery person. Essentially,
this is so ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. So the person is wearing the hat that Kairi had on, and she's sitting, she's turned around, so we still don't know who she is. We're just, we're supposed to assume it's Kairi. And Saya's, going to apologize, and I don't know how she didn't see Kairi's face as she looked right in front of her. But Kairi comes up from behind and says, like, hello. Everyone knew. Like, they went through the whole thing. She's like, yeah, everyone knew that I was coming in. And then Saya was like, wait a minute, what happened? And then, now we're back to kind of square one. But the good news is we already have Kairi. So whoever this person is won't, be a letdown, which I think was the definite worry with all this. Because, the rumors of Sayori, that was a big time rumor, and I think it was a believable rumor that I started to get a little worried about past couple of days. I was like, I still think it's Kairi, but oh man, that would be when they gave her a press conference, I was like, oh, it has to be Kairi. You don't do a press conference for like just someone off the street. No offense to Sayori, but now there's another mystery person. And Saya Kamatani is still connected with this person. Could it be Sayori? Maybe. Could it be someone signing with someone on the current free agency market signing with the company? Sure. Or is it, another big return? Is it someone? Is it going to be Saya Kamatani's opponent, Ariyagoku Sumo Hall? We don't really know, because Saya Kamatani's match at Ryogoku isn't as clear as pretty much every other champion. Every other champion feels like they have a direction, and maybe it's due in part to her having a pay-per-view match first. But Parker, man, what are we thinking here for another mystery person? Do we think it's a brand new talent, not as big? Well, definitely not as big as Kairi. There's, the only person as big as Kairi that they could bring in is Io Shirai. And, she's still busy, unfortunately. So do we think it's, a big name, or, a middle-ish name that they're bringing in? The idea that they look like Natsupoi, that's still a conversation. The part here is, I don't know if Saya like watch the press conference to realize what happened?
Yeah, what's our continuity?
Yeah, like
I
I
think
don't know
the
how
idea
she
is
was.
maybe this video was taken before the press
Maybe,
conference or something like that. I don't know.
maybe. Yeah.
Um,
So what do we think? What do we think comes out of this? Like, or is it just a new wrestler free agent signing, or is it a returning someone from Stardom's past? I've seen people toss out Izuki Aikawa, and I was like, she's on every single pay per view for Stardom. I don't think they would have to do this. Like you see her at ringside. So do we think it's someone from the past, or is it someone brand new?
yeah, I kind of did think Yusupon for who it could be. I'm looking way too into like the hair that we see from this
Yeah.
woman, but I mean that's her hair.
Yeah, it is.
It could be. Sorry, I know, but to be honest, I'm like not that big of a fan.
Her hair is also shorter than that.
Personally, yeah, her hair's shorter than that. I don't know that it's her, although she has slightly longer hair now. I don't know. Maybe, and again, could be just like overthinking that too.
It doesn't click as much for me either.
Arisa Hoshiki, I think is
no Parker. We can't. No, don't say that. Don't say that.
I know.
Like, don't get my hopes up over here.
I know, but you always have to bring her up. And anytime people retire, and there's like it wasn't necessarily for, I mean, this was ostensibly for health issues, but she's been doing acting essentially for a while now. People can always come back. So those were kind of the ones that came to mind. I was trying to think of who else fits the bill, and I don't know, just couldn't come up with that many choices. It can't be anybody international, because they would have to physically be in Japan.
Right.
So yeah, and I was just thinking of like the current free agents, and there's just not, I mean, there's Tai Honma, which that's not what her hair looks like, although she could have dyed it.
Yeah.
There's like, I don't know, there's Mei Hoshizuki, but they wouldn't, that doesn't really fit the bill. So I don't know. I still think Yusupon personally, but yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, man. I mean, though some of those names just massive in Stardom, canon per se. Yusupon, of course, the biggest if you go deep into Stardom's history. And if it's Yusupon, Arisa Hoshiki, there is reason to believe that you do that match at Ryogoku Sumo Hall, no matter who it is. If anyone knows who Yusupon is, kind of a big deal, especially with the Wonder of Stardom title. And then there's Arisa Hoshiki, who never rightfully lost the title. So if you were to just insert someone into a potential Wonder of Stardom title match, which we don't know if that's what they're going to do with this person, but the multiple Saya Kamatani moments makes you think that it's possible. It's just really intriguing. Maybe we'll learn this coming week at Cinderella Journey. But Parker, before we wrap up the Kairi talk, is there any final thoughts you have on the return of Kairi Sane, Kairi Hojo, or as she likes to be called now, just Kairi?
Yeah, she's just Kairi. I think I said it before. It's the biggest free agent signing in Stardom history. The fact that they've been able to build and construct a roster like this in a pandemic without being able to bring in any foreign talent at all, and in fact losing their best foreigner in B. Priestley, is remarkable. And they're on a path right now. Like, we've beaten this concept to death, but Stardom's just going to keep moving up. I mean, they cleaned up in the Observer Awards more so than any Joshi company has since All Japan Women. And I think that's indicative of where we are right now. There have been better Joshi companies and matches since then, but in terms of the last decade or so, I mean, this is this is by far the hottest a Joshi company has ever been. So desperately hoping Kairi's a regular roster member, and going forward, anything remotely with Kairi's name attached to it is like must see, because you just want to know what's going to happen with her future. So this is awesome news. I can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna quickly touch on the Observer results. Congrats to Tommy Hayashishita. Thank God she beat Britt Baker. That was my start. Stardom finished, what did I see, second for promotion of the year behind the obvious AEW. I mean, I don't think anyone questioned what was winning that, but it's still great to see them in that conversation by voters. So that was cool. And, they, like you said, they cleaned up big time throughout all the awards, more than you've seen a Joshi company in a long time. My final thoughts here on Kairi before we move on to the regular happenings in Joshi. This, you pretty much said it perfectly, of biggest signing in Stardom, and sure, she might be from the past, but it's still massive. Kairi gives Stardom's wrestlers, she gives them a bigger chance to grow just by being there. She gives them this opportunity of more eyes from a lot of Western fans, which could be hit or miss sometimes, and if we actually want that or not. But what Kairi brings to the table is being one of the best in Stardom history. She is a legend in the fact, if you just look at Stardom itself. A lot of people toss around legend, goats. They toss around everything like it means nothing. When it comes to Stardom, Kairi fits any conversation you want to have of the best in that promotion's history. And the fact that she's back, all eyes are now on Stardom, which they've been on Stardom, but they're even more so now. And it's just great to see her back, because the big thing for me is that I always wanted her to retire on her terms, and that I will give WWE credit for once. They did let her go back to Japan and be home, and not have to finish her contract in the States away from her husband, family. So good for them. But no one wanted her last match to be against Bayley in an empty arena due to COVID-19. Let's just say that. That's not a crime against Bayley. Bayley's very good, for especially compared to a lot of WWE's roster. Bayley's great, all that, but no way should Kairi's last match ever be in front of nobody in WWE. Now she gets to come home. She finishes up where she belongs. I don't know how long this ride's going to last, but as Stardom fan, as a Joshi fan, as a Kairi fan, I think we just have to enjoy whatever we get, because no one knew if this was ever going to happen. So that's the best way to look at it. Don't be let down by anything if something doesn't happen, because there was a chance we never got this, so let's just be happy. WWE could have easily been like, all right, we're going to extend your contract this long because, you didn't do anything for us or whatever, because that's just what they do. So let's just be happy at the age of 33, in the best shape of her life. Kairi's coming back and she's going to do something special. And that's really exciting.